Hello, denizens of YouTube and wherever else you may be watching this. This is Jacob, also known as Padlock. Someone on SoundCloud asked me for a tutorial on some basic, programming type things, so I'm just going to go through that. Keep in mind, this is only one way of a million different types of ways to do this. And that, you can always do it your own way. I'm going to show you how to do pretty much the same things in two programs. I'm going to show you Renoise and Ableton. I'm much more familiar with Renoise. I do pretty much know, a lot about Ableton, but know quite a bit more about Renoise. And another thing to keep in mind is that there are also, tons and tons and tons of other tutorials on how to do pretty much the same stuff. So, if you don't like the way I'm doing it, go find other tutorials. There's hundreds of them on YouTube for Ableton and, a little less, but still quite a few for Renoise. So getting into it, this video is just going to be some basic Breakcore drum programming. I'm going to set the BPM to 180 because that's the BPM in my Ableton track. So I'm going to set the BPM to 180 to start off. And I've already got a sliced up Amen break right here. The whole thing. This is already compressed and EQ'd. I'm not really going to go into that. I'm just going to do little programming things. So I'm just going to add a bunch of empty patterns here. All right. So, start off with, just basic drum programming. That's pretty straightforward. I'm going to keep muting and unmuting this microphone so I can actually hear, because if I don't, I get feedback. So, yeah, I'm going to turn this mic off now for a bit and just, program some drums. You'll hear what I'm doing and you'll see it, so. So I just programmed this basic drum loop here. Did I do anything crazy? No. It's just a basic Amen drum loop, self-programmed. It's not the original rhythm, obviously. I have it sliced up into individual pieces, so you've got your basic rhythm here. So there's that. Okay, first little trick to do would be some pitch shifting. So let's look at pitch shifting in Renoise. Renoise just in the most recent update, version 2.8, completely overhauled their pattern effect command system to be a lot more intuitive. I actually like it more this way, but basically Renoise uses pattern effect commands to work with various effects that are built into the program within a pattern, so you don't have to do automation for everything. Like in FL, if you were going to do some pitch shifting like this, you'd probably have to create an automation curve for the channel pitch on the instrument that you're wanting to pitch around. It's just kind of long-winded, where in Renoise it's just very easy. So I'm just going to put in some pitch commands in here, and the pitch commands are 0D XX, which is pitch down, pitch slide down, and the XX is the how fast it slides down, like by what increment, and every 10 Like if you were to put it 0D10, that would be a semitone, I believe. That's a yeah. So if I were to put 0D10, that's pitched down by a semitone or a half step. So yeah, I'm just gonna put in some pitch shifting stuff, and then there's the pitch up command, which is 0U00, and same thing with the numbers. So here we go. One thing I forgot to mention is that when you put a bunch of the numbers in a row, they're compounded onto each other. So basically, like right here, if you look right here, this first one says D10, and then the other ones are all zeros. Basically, what that does is the first one sets it to 10, and then whatever ones after it that are zeros, whatever the last number was, is what the zeros take on. And it's compounded so that it pitches down a semitone here, and then another semitone, and then another semitone, and so on and so forth. So it's just a consistent pitch slide down, and the same goes for pitch slide up. So that's your basic pitch commands. What next? See, I don't want to get too much into like basic Renoise stuff because this is something that you could easily find in the official Renoise video tutorials. So I don't want to get into that. What I'm going to get more into is time stretching using the formerly known as the 09XX command, now known as the 0SXX, which stands sorry, my throat is really dry. Stands for sample offset. So I'm just going to duplicate this pattern here, and I'm going to get rid of all the pitch stuff. Okay, so time stretching with the 09 or 0SXX command is, it's a bit more tricky than the pitch commands. So basically, first off, what we want to do is figure out how long we want to stretch whatever we're stretching. So let's say I wanted to stretch, just to be simple, this first kick. Let's say I wanted to make it kind of like have a old school time stretch sound all the way across this expanse right here. So what I'm going to do is go into record mode and put kicks all through that. And then what I'm going to do is I press 0S00, or just press S in the second line or second column of the effect column. I don't know what you would call that. Then go to the end of where you want to stretch it. Put another one, 0S, and then whatever value you want to stretch it to. And these values, these numbers, correspond to, in the sample editor, you have these numbers going across the top here. And these are the 0SXX numbers. So whatever number you put in there is going to correspond to wherever position is marked on the sample by the numbers up here. So let's say I wanted to stretch to 30 and just have it stretch. So I'm going to put 30. And then here's the fun part. I'm going to make a selection from the first S to the last S. And then I'm going to hit Control I. On a Mac, I'm pretty sure it would be Command I. And what that does is that interpolates between those two values. So you get a stretch, basically. So if I play this back, you'll hear the first sound is stretch. I'll just do a bit more of that. So that's pretty much that for time stretching. And then you can combine that with the pitch commands and get some really weird stuff. An important thing to note, if you're running a sample offset stretch at the same time you're doing a pitch command, you have to run it a bit differently. Unfortunately, the compounding of the pitch slide only works per each sample trigger. After, whenever each next sample is triggered, it resets the pitch shifting. That's why you have to do an actual number value for every single note in a sample offset time stretch. The other way you could do this is you could select this and render that selection to a sample and then do a pitch shift, and it sounds more smooth. See if you listen to this. It still kind of sounds the same. There's a bit of, pitch stuff going on, but it's not really anything big. But if I were to render that to a sample and then do it, it would sound quite different. So just going into Ableton, depending on who you are, you might think it's faster. So just going to minimize this. Going into Ableton and doing this, I'm not going to have a fancy programmed beat. I'm just going to, here. I'm going to go into Session View. I'm going to paste this clip in here. All right, so we've got this clip here. Back to session. All right, so we've got this basic loop here. So to do pitch shifting in this, it's a bit tricky-er, but it's nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to double-click on whatever clip we want to do pitch shifting on. We're going to come down here to the clip. Now let's say I wanted to pitch this snare down, have it pitch slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this E button right here. This stands for envelope. And I'm going to make sure this says clip. I'm going to make this say transposition. So now we've got the transposition envelope, and I'm going to create a point right there, and then a point sliding down right there, and then another point on the line right here, resetting it back up. Whoa. So that you get this. Yeah, but see, it's not very smooth because of the way it's being warped. So if I were to do it in complex warp mode, you hear that pitch shift. And to do it in the reverse direction, pitch it up. And you get weird glitchy sounds in Ableton. That's what I love about it, is that you can do all this crazy stuff. And then for time stretching, this is one place where Ableton is really, really strong, is in time stretching and the warp system. So basically, I want to stretch this snare out really to make it sound really long. So what I'm going to do is come up here in Session Arrangement, I'm going to press Control or Command E at the end of the snare and then at the beginning of the snare. That separates it from the rest of the sample to make its own sample so I can do some crazy stretching stuff. So what I'm going to do is I have my warp marker there. I'm going to drag this warp marker out so it kind of sounds like, you know, it doesn't sound different now, but once I change it to texture warp mode, you'll see you get that kind of like old school stretch sound. If I were to make this longer, so yeah, that's pretty much how you do that in Renoise and Ableton. And that's pretty much the basis of all of my drum programming, is just clever use of rhythm, pitch shifting, and time stretching, and then combining them all into crazy combinations. That's pretty much it as far as like crazy beat stuff. You know, I'm not going to get into like specialized effects that I use or anything to make certain glitches and stuff, because that's another video for another day. But yeah, I hope this is helpful. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments. Yeah. Bye-bye.